The first week of NFL free agency is pretty much wrapped up at this point with a lot of the big names being signed. So I thought we could do a quick refresh on all the moves Denver has made so far, whether it's guys they have brought in or players they have lost, and we'll give out some grades along the way. So let's start with kind of just going surface level, all the players they have signed or re-signed in free agency so far. Starting off with PJ Locke, he comes back on a 2-year deal. Then they added Brandon Jones, brought back Wil Lutz after a little scare with Jacksonville. Michael Burton re-signed. Malcolm Roach on the defensive line. Lil'Jordan Humphrey and Adam Trautman both re-signed as well. So clearly not even anywhere close or in the right zip code of the spending they had last year in free agency, right? They spent $87 million on Mike McGlinchey alone. You can combine all these contracts, and that's not even half of what one guy got last year. So not as exciting as a season to go. Now, who do they lose in free agency? Well, they released Russell Wilson. He signed with the Steelers, and then Kenny Pickett and his small hands got upset, so he got traded to Philly. Jerry Jeudy got dealt to Cleveland. Lloyd Cushenberry, he signed with the Tennessee Titans. Chris Manhertz went to the New York Giants after being released. Jonathan Harris, he signed with the Dolphins. I'll miss Josie Jewell. I think he's a really good linebacker. He's in Carolina. Justin Simmons, as I film Friday, 3:30 p.m. Mountain Time, is still a free agent. And those are all the free agent departures thus far. So let's start off in kind of a chronological-ish order. Jerry Jeudy got dealt to the Cleveland Browns in a move that I thought Denver would get more than just a 5th and a 6th. I understand they're shedding nearly $13 million in cap space, so that's kind of a win in itself to get below the salary cap. But unfortunately, that's part of the downfall of a Russell Wilson $85 million dead cap hit. You have to move on from players that maybe you didn't want to, or maybe you're not going to move on from them for great value because you have to get below the salary cap. I believe this is one of the consequences, right? Jerry Jeudy, sure, through 4 seasons in Denver, never lived up to the first-round potential and hype. His best season was, I would say, the second half of 2022, right? After the intermission of that season, he finished the year really strong, 3 touchdowns against the Chiefs at home. But this past season, he was injured to begin the year, and then once he was healthy, it looked like he was still as good as he was when he was injured. 750 yards, 2 touchdowns. It was just never a good fit in Denver with all the quarterbacks, head coaches, play callers changing. And listen, that should not make or break a first-round talent wide receiver. They're going in round 1 to overcome issues like that. But for Jeudy in Denver, it was just never going to work long-term. So who do you think won the trade? You're going to go with Cleveland or Denver? I'm inclined to say Cleveland because just getting a 5th and a 6th. Guys, if I told you back in January in a video, I think Jeudy gets traded for a 5th and a 6th, you would have torn me to shreds in the comment section saying, are you crazy? We can get a 2nd for Jerry Jeudy. But unfortunately, when you need to shed $13 million in cap space, well, you're not going to find a team that's going to give you more draft picks while taking on all that money. Whereas if Denver didn't need to shed $13 million, but just wanted to trade Jerry Jeudy for the sake of getting draft compensation, they could have done a trade similar to the Von Miller trade, where they eat some of the money to get better draft picks in return. But they needed more than just draft picks. They needed cap space. They needed cap relief, which meant no team was going to give them a great offer. Moving on to the first signing, if you will, of free agency, Brandon Jones on a 3-year, $20 million deal. I give this a C grade. C's average. I think Brandon Jones is an average corner, and this is a pretty average contract, right? $12.5 million guaranteed. I look at it as a 2-year, $12 million contract. That is $6 million a season. Keep in mind, Justin Simmons was making $14 million for 2024. Now you look at Denver's starting safety tandem with PJ Locke on a 2-year, $6.5 million contract. You can combine Brandon Jones and PJ Locke's contracts for 2024, and it's still about $4 to $5 million cheaper than what Justin Simmons was set to make by himself. That is, as what I've been saying all week long, the definition of a rebuild. Taking one player, taking that salary, removing it, getting 2 players for less than what you were paying one. That is what teams do when they are in cap hell. And that's unfortunately a cap casualty. They didn't move on from Justin Simmons because he was bad. I still think Justin Simmons is a top 5 safety in this league. But when you take on an $85 million dead cap hit, and I know everyone's getting sick and tired of me saying it, but this is the price of it. Moving on, Malcolm Roach, I give this one a C-level grade. It's a 2-year, $7 million deal. Only a $3 million guaranteed, so Denver can get on from this after one season if it's really bad in 2024. But I'm not super excited about this signing. And Malcolm Roach, I'm sorry to be a doubter, if you will, but I mean, I'm looking at the last 4 seasons for him, and he's been a backup DT in New Orleans, and I feel like the only reason why the Broncos signed him is because he was in New Orleans. I don't know if it has anything to do with the way he played in New Orleans, but Sean Payton just wanted to get guys that he's got familiarity and trust with. Now, when you look at his Pro Football Focus grades, this one does kind of boost the signing a little bit. He ranked 26 out of 130 qualifying defensive tackles, which is really good. And if he does play at that level in Denver, that's awesome. He didn't play a full season, so it's not the greatest sample size necessarily, but I'm happy to see his run defense grade is better than his pass rush grade because that is where Denver needs help on the run defensive side of things, okay? You look at their defensive line, Jonathan Harris is gone. I don't think DJ Jones will be here much longer. There's $10 million in cap savings to be had. My guess is they've been working the phones trying to execute a trade, and if they can't find a trade partner, then they will just outright release him. And if they do, maybe Mike Purcell comes back. Are you going to use it? What pick are you going to use on defensive tackle? First round? Pick number 12? You're going to move back and acquire a second and go defensive tackle then? I'm not saying these things aren't doable, but as of right now, as the way things currently stand, there's not a good plan in place for Denver to improve this defensive line, which was bottom 3 last year. It may be worse in 2024. I don't think Malcolm Roach moves the needle enough for me. We have more free agent signings to get to in just a second, but we are so close actually to 21,000 subscribers. Less than 150 away, 117 to be precise. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please, please, please consider going ahead and doing so. It's completely free, and I think it's the best free Broncos YouTube content out there. Moving on to Wil Lutz. He signed a 2-year, $8.4 million contract. I give it a B grade. I think Wil Lutz played very well last season. He exceeded my expectations, that's for sure. Went 30 for 34. That's an 88.2 field goal percentage. He had some nice moments. He had some big clutch kicks at times. We can also thank Damar Hamlin for being the 12th player on the field and allowing him to re-kick what would have been a game-losing field goal attempt. So Wil Lutz coming back on a 2-year deal kind of tries to reestablish some consistency, if you will, at the kicker position after so many years with Brandon McManus. Next signing, we're going to go with fullback Michael Burton. It's a 1-year deal. I haven't found the contract details yet. My guess is it'll be 1 year, $1.2 million. I'll give it a C-plus grade. Again, I don't think Michael Burton's going to get an A or an F. It's just not that polarizing of a signing. I mean, he hardly touched the football last year, and listen, that's perfectly fine. That's not his job. His job is to block for Javonte Williams and other running backs and whatnot. So I thought he did an adequate to above-average job at that, and ultimately, we know the fullback is unfortunately a dying position in the NFL, but for Denver, they want to run the football, which I got to envision if it's Jarrett Stidham or a rookie quarterback in 2024, they're going to want to pound the rock a lot, which means it'll be nice to have a good fullback, and Michael Burton is a pretty good fullback. Next signing, wide receiver Lil'Jordan Humphrey. It's a 1-year deal. Haven't seen the contract details just yet, although I think maybe I did. It's a 1 year, like $1.1 million. It's very low level, okay? It's a B- signing. I thought he played actually very well last season in a very small role for Denver, right? 13 grabs, and 3 of them were touchdowns. He was also one of the better blocking wide receivers. And listen, I understand that fans, we just judge wide receivers off of yardage and touchdowns, but coaches go a little bit more than just that, right? They want to know that they can trust the man on the field to execute the play call. And about 45% of the time, it's going to be a run. And they don't want Humphrey on the field as a liability that can't block for his running back. And he did that quite well last season. Now, Denver's wide receiver room without Jerry Jeudy in it, Courtland Sutton appears to be staying put. Tim Patrick is back on a 1-year reworked contract. Marvin Mims is in line for a much bigger role, and I'm excited for that because he had some great highlights last season. And then I think you got some really good depth, honestly, with Lil'Jordan Humphrey, Brandon Johnson. Hopefully Jalen Virgil comes back after being injured a season ago. And you've got some nice pass catchers hanging out on the bench, ready to step in for a bigger role. Next signing, tight end Adam Trautman. Now, initially, I wasn't too strongly opinionated on this signing because it was such a low-level deal, but then I saw the contract details. 2-year, $7.5 million. Listen, awesome for Adam Trautman. He went to Dayton. It's an FCS school. They don't produce a ton of football players. So for him to get maybe the biggest contract in Dayton football history, that's pretty cool, and that's awesome for him. Should Denver have given a $7.5 million contract out to a tight end that 204 yards and 3 touchdowns last season? Probably not. But once again, can you figure out where he was before Denver? Oh, yeah, in New Orleans with Sean Payton. So the train continues. And I know I'm being critical, but, man, it does make you wonder, I feel like the only way to get a job in Denver is to have worked in New Orleans at some point. When you look at the tight end room, you cannot trust Greg Dulcich to play 17 games, which means you have to have a good backup plan in place. And right now, he is the backup plan, right? Adam Trautman is the starter. And I don't feel like Adam Trautman as your plan A starting tight end is that great of a plan because sure, he had a nice touchdown here or there last year, but are we actually going to stand here and act like Adam Trautman is going to dramatically improve this offense? At least for what he's being paid, I would expect a little bit more production out of him. Grade the Broncos free agency for me, though, so far. A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know in the comment section below what you would give the Broncos. For me, I'd give them like a C to C minus. They lost Justin Simmons. They lost Jerry Jeudy. Who do they gain that's better than those guys? Did this team improve? I don't think so. This team is going to have to either hit on some great draft picks or have won a hell of a job of a coaching season. Otherwise, they may be the worst team in football next year. All right, that will do it for us, though, on this edition of the Broncos Breakdown. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Enjoy the start of your weekend, and I'm sure you'll be seeing my face on Saturday or Sunday if we get another signing.